Hello, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to all the teachers across London. Thank you for taking the time to come and join us for this. I'm going to stop. Hopefully you're hearing those bird sounds. The sounds. This is the Forest of Dean. Comes from an organisation called Radio Lento, who do some really good live recordings of different locations. It's a really useful tool. I'll include it in the description, Radio Lento. But yeah, so we are so proud to be announcing this partnership with all the boroughs across London and the Greater London Authority and councils. And it's been great to work with teams across different levels of London sort of, organisations. And what we've done then is I'm going to share with you my screen. Here we are. We've put together a package based on what we as the Ministry of Eco-Education have done nationally to help focus on the context of London and make something specific and tailored to teachers and schools across London to really support them, to help them embed sustainability across their existing curriculum. So it's about making the best of all of the great opportunities already out there and helping support you to weave those into it. So we're going to spend the next half an hour, the very most, exploring different ideas of sustainability and education for sustainability. And the whole premise is going to help make you feel more confident and help you to better understand what we've done for teachers across London. You will have already received your login via the school main office. So you'll have had access to the Ministry of Eco-Education website and all our kind of broader resources. Now, here's London. Here's a traditional map of London. And people think of it by, these are all the boroughs. And yes, we've got support for each of those boroughs. But this is quite like a kind of human-focused way of thinking about London. Yes, there's the Thames there, you can see running through the middle. But all these different colours are the boroughs. And that's the way that we kind of help structure and order the city. Now, it's interesting, though, to look at it from a different perspective. Have a look at a map of London like this. Any ideas what it might show? And the colour might help lend itself to this. So this is a map of tree cover of the City of London. And actually, there's about the same number of trees as there are people. London is one of the greenest cities in the world. And it might be a way of framing London in a way that you wouldn't traditionally think of it. We often spend our time really busy wandering around the streets, lots of cars, lots of noise. It's a really dynamic place, but often we don't think of it in terms of the green spaces. And there's been some really interesting kind of things written about research and kind of adventures, particularly people like Daniel Raven Ellison, who has made journeys from north to south and east to west, making sure that he's got tree cover. So he's sort of following the tree cover and he's taken pictures and videos looking up, exploring, the amount of trees, being able to do that. You can walk north to south following trees. And this idea of narratives and kind of reframing things is really important, and it's something that we are trying to do as an organization, is help to say, look, there's actually a different story we can tell, one that isn't around doom and gloom. Instead, there's a really positive story around focusing on nature and helping develop people's agency and empowering young people to actually have a positive impact. And that's a really key part of what we're hoping to achieve with this. So yeah, we're going to explore the bridging document so that you've really got a handle of exactly what it is that you can use to help you in your borough. I'm going to give a bit of a 5-minute summary just to make sure everyone's got a really good understanding of the climate and nature crisis. And then we're going to go deeper into the Ministry of Eco-Education support around big questions and how we've weaved together the best resources from more than 200 organisations and how that can help save you time and energy to help inform and develop your existing planning. And then we're going to direct you towards some next steps. So let's jump in then to this. So there's a link which I'll put in the description, a bit link, which is I think it's something like Me London, but I'll put it in the description, and you will have received this with your school email. Here are what we call bridging documents for every single London borough. There's also one as well for Greater London. And each of these is tailored to give support for you in your specific context. So we could jump into one of them. Maybe if we jump in, let's try Merton. So if anyone of you from Merton, this will be really useful for you. But you'll be able to explore this, and I'll explain the structure and context of these, but you can explore your own. So what we've got here is, first of all, some headline information around the borough. So where is it? What's it kind of, how many, what kind of place is it? And then also the population size, and then the number of schools, both primary and secondary. Now, I can tell you here that this one needs updating. It's missing. It's a slightly confused one. This one's got the city of Westminster, but what it also has is the climate target for that. And I know all the boroughs have got some really ambitious targets for all of the councils to be net zero by 2030. Got a bit more information about the Ministry of Eco Education and the idea of what education sustainability is. And then there's two columns to this. The left-hand side is the Ministry of Eco Education's big questions and our framework and approach. And it's a really easy lens to help explore sustainability. And this lends itself to the curriculum and the kind of way that we structure our teaching. And then on the right-hand side, we've got some really specific examples of sustainability happening in your local area. And the way that you can use this is by helping bring them as examples in your teaching. You could get young people exploring them, investigating those local examples. It could be that you go and visit some of these. So some of these, particularly in the nature one, are possibly nature reserves or places nearby that you could actually go and organize a trip to. Or often it's also opportunities to invite people into the school. So it might be community groups or experts that you can invite to come and visit you. So yeah, we've got energy, transport, food, nature, society, waste, and water. And the whole point of these documents as well is that we can also collaborate in co-creating these, and there's the opportunity to add comments if you've got a really good example that you think should be in there. But this is a really good starting point for you. So that's the bridging documents, and there are one for each London borough, and that's a really good starting point to help inform your teaching. What we've got next then is, let me jump into this 5-minute summary. And this actually might be something that you do with young people. You could do as an assembly or a tutor time or kind of any opportunity really. So we can think about the Earth as being the Goldilocks planet and relate it to the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So just like Goldilocks, she goes wandering about, finds a house, and in it she finds some porridge. Some of that porridge is a bit cold, some of it's a bit hot, but then she finds some that is just right, and that's exactly what the planet is. It is just the right temperature, just the right conditions for life to flourish. And there's loads of reasons why the Earth is this perfect place for life to flourish. One of them is it's got water, it's got oxygen, it's also the perfect distance from the sun, it's the perfect orbit, we've got a moon, but it's also got an atmosphere, this blanket of gases, and we can think about that blanket of gases a bit like a coat. The Earth has got a coat, it's completely natural, it's good, and it keeps the Earth at the perfect temperature for life to flourish. Now, that's a really good way to start the story. But what we can then say is actually humans came along and we found in the ground oil, coal, and gas. We found another coat. We burnt that oil, coal, and gas, and that released carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that added another coat to the Earth. So the Earth's got two coats on. And imagine if you were wearing two coats all day, you'd be too hot. And if you were too hot, what would you do? You'd take one of them off. But it's not so easy for the Earth to do that. Yes, there are things in nature that help suck carbon dioxide out of the sky, as plants, anything that does photosynthesis. But actually, humans have interfered with this cycle and moved the carbon dioxide from being stored in the ground into the atmosphere at such a big scale and so quickly that actually all of the plants that we have actually kind of depleted and destroyed can't do it enough. And there are things like in Iceland, big hoovers sucking carbon dioxide out of the sky called geoengineering, where we're then having to kind of help remove that carbon dioxide on a big kind of almost planetary scale. And actually then we can think about carbon dioxide a bit more and the temperature. This here is something called the warming stripes. And it was developed by an academic from Reading, the University of Reading, called Ed Hawkins. And it starts in 1850, goes to the present day. 1850, this turning point with the Industrial Revolution. Each line is a different year, and you can see how the darker the blue, the colder, the darker the red, the warmer. And this is a kind of a variation from a global average temperature it was calculated between 1971 and 2000. And you can see how the world's got warmer by about 1.2 degrees Celsius. And 1.2 degrees doesn't sound like much, and that's part of the problem, is these numbers don't sound scary. But on a global scale, it shifts the types of weather and the extremes of weather that we experience. So it nudges the sort of all of that along slightly and makes it more likely for us to experience extreme weather, the temperature to be more intense. As well as temperature, that also has an impact on rainfall. And that's to do with evaporation. When you've got more energy in this system, it drives evaporation, then we get more precipitation. So we experience kind of more intense periods of rainfall, which kind of sounds a bit odd. But we also then all experience the extended drought as well. So the rain comes more intensely, but in short periods of time. And that's kind of what we've been experiencing around the world. We can then relate that to carbon dioxide. So this is over the last 2000 years. You can see how the amount of carbon dioxide in the sky was pretty level. We had this turning point around the Industrial Revolution, and then it has shot up. And it's never gone up this quickly in human history. And actually, we can go back in time, the last 800,000 years, and you can see there these cyclical kind of warm, cold periods to do with glaciers and glacial periods. But you can see it's almost like a vertical line there from about 1850 to the present day. And that shows you how quickly and rapidly the carbon dioxide and temperature has been increasing. You'd need to go back about 2 million years to be able to find carbon dioxide at the same concentration as it is today. And the world was a pretty different place then. So this then is that variation. So carbon dioxide and temperature can often sound a bit abstract and difficult for people struggle to understand what those numbers mean and what really kind of the impact it has. So we can bring it to more of a human element in terms of the weather that we experience. So climate and weather are different. Climate is a longer term average. Weather is the day-to-day atmospheric conditions, but the climate is having an impact, or the climate change is impacting on the weather that we experience. And you can see here how the shift to the right only by 1.2 degrees Celsius shifts them the extremes of what we kind of experience in terms of temperature, and also then it reduces the likelihood of having really cold weather. So that's the kind of lived experience, and people might feel that in terms of if they're a gardener or kind of the time they spend outside, and this increasingly is affecting everyone in terms of their lived experience. Now, some of the missing part of this jigsaw is also the impact on nature, and that's a really fundamental part. We often get focused, like hyper-focused on carbon and carbon counting, but what we often forget is that humans have interfered with the rest of nature, with the balance. And on the right-hand side there, you can see that there's only 4% of global mammals that are now wild animals. It's a very small proportion. That used to be only 100, 200 years ago. It was a much larger figure. Humans make up now 34%, but the majority is livestock, and it's the food that we eat. It's the way that we, the agricultural processes that have industrialized, and it's those things that have shifted the amount of the kind of balance in nature. And you can see that the majority is cattle. There are a lot of cows in the world now. And this, again, is something to explore. It's something to question, to say, well, what is the right balance? Where should this be? But that's something to explore and to question, that humans have had a dramatic impact on the rest of nature. We can also think about this from a climate justice perspective, and often people foreground this. This is the bit that people start with. So fundamentally, yes, we talk about humans causing climate change, but it's a very small number of people who've made the biggest impact. It is the richest people, the wealthiest people within the world. And actually, Oxfam did some research, and they found that the richest 10% of people in the world have emitted about 52%, more than 50% of all the carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere. And it's the poorest 50%, so about 4 billion people, who actually have only produced 7%, so a very small amount. So, if we were to think about this as a climate justice issue or carbon equity, we'd say that that poorest 50% should be allowed to emit 50%, that surely they should be allowed more, and it's the richest people on Earth who should have to reduce theirs. And just to put this in context, the richest 10%, you only need to be earning minimum wage in the UK, about £16,500 to be in the top 10% richest people on Earth. And that hopefully gives a bit of context to the way that we live and our lifestyle in the UK compared to the majority of people in the rest of kind of the rest of people in the world. Okay, so let's jump into the Ministry of Eco Education. I'm going to show you our website, and this is something that you've got access to through your school sort of admin office email. So there's a one login that can be shared across all the teachers in your school, and everyone can use that within the school. So we're really keen to say that we are a bunch of teachers. We're all teachers, and collectively we're trying to help support schools for free to be able to integrate sustainability into what they do. These pictures just give you a bit of context. Nick was the head teacher that we started this with, and then myself in the middle, and then Dale, who is a sort of environmental activist. He's actually the founder of Ecotricity, the UK's greenest energy company, and he's the funder, and he funds what we do. So what we've done then is created a framework that is a way to explore sustainability. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit here just so that it shows you a bit better. We've got 7 themes, and these are things that people might be comfortable with from eco schools or from other frameworks, but we think this is a really good way to help break down sustainability in the way that we live. And actually, this is sort of prioritized as well. Now, within the UK, transport is actually now our largest carbon emission or source of carbon emissions, closely followed by energy and food. And it's those 3 actually that make up about 80% of our impact on the rest of nature. And then we've also tagged on as a 4th thing, nature, because I've said this already, we often forget about nature. It's always really important to say, what about the impact on nature, and how can we help develop and give more space for nature? And then we've also got society, waste and water, to ask really fundamental questions about the way that we structure our lives and structure society. Now, underneath each of these themes, there are something called big questions. And these are big fundamental questions that we think young people should be exploring. They're the sorts of things that we in broader society, in the media, kind of as in politics, we're really exploring and grappling with. So these are things where there's not necessarily a right answer, but they're things worth exploring. Now, each of these frames a series of about 8 lessons. Some of them are pitched at certain age groups, but we think, and from our experience, these are useful and inspiration for people at any age or any age range. If we click on one, you can see that we've linked in literacy. So there's a key text linked with each of these. There is a kind of outcome that has real world value. So we've tried to make sure that we've linked in something that is either producing something that can be shared with the wider community, or an event that you can host other people, or something that you can kind of share. But the idea being it has value beyond the single teacher. We have linked this into the national curriculum and shown how the national curriculum links into these things. And then each of the lessons has a question, and they weave together the resources from different organisations. And in this one, you can see it's got something from the Deep Time Walk, it's got something from the RSC, from the Geological Society. We've got something from this one's actually from New Zealand. We've got something from the BBC, the Lake District. So there's a real variety, and the idea of these is to act as inspiration. It might be that you could weave some of this into something you've already got. It might be you've got a similar topic, you've got something that explores kind of carbon and kind of brings in ideas of the rock cycle and the carbon cycle. Maybe you're doing a topic around the Industrial Revolution, and you might be able to bring more of this in. And what we're really excited about is how cross-curricular this is. So this is a topic, this one in particular, that weaves together the science of carbon, but also the history of the Industrial Revolution, and mixes the two together. It could be that you just look at this and you think, oh, there's an interesting activity I've not seen before. And again, that is great. You've been inspired and you've changed something you've done. So we've got about 60 of these questions across all the different themes. But those things are really general. And those bridging documents that I showed you a minute ago, those are the bits that we think are really useful to then take that general structure and help weave in a bit of the local context as well. Now, let's think, what's next? And to help support you for this, we've actually come up with a bit of a journey. So when you log in, you get a kind of personalized journey, which actually has 5 steps. And the first step is we say it's not about starting to teach straight away. You need to do things in advance. First of all, it's about starting a conversation with the whole broader school community so that you really bring everyone along and you kind of almost explore where you are to begin with and move from that. So you're probably all in different places along your sustainability journey. And we've got here some template letters that you could use to help start that conversation. We've brought together some third-party resources, weaved them together into this framework. So there's a student survey, a staff survey. And we've also included the nature connection survey as well, so that you can really assess people's relationship with nature. And that's like a baseline that as you go through this process, you can return to and explore. Now, step two then is starting to map things like the current curriculum. Where does sustainability fit in what you are already doing? And then you could look at the school grounds, and that's where things like the Education Nature Park initiative comes in, and you can start to actually measure and quantify the school grounds. What we've also done is brought together a whole variety of staff training, of things to watch and read, as well as other kind of opportunities in terms of staff training. There's also then things like awards and badges and flags. And what we've done is shown how they can weave into your current curriculum. So we've kind of put them together in one place to help inspire you and yeah, kind of think about how you might make use of all of them. And it's actually then, that's the third step, that you then start to think about incorporating some of these topics. So it might be that you use the headings and think, oh, actually, have we got more of one of these in our school curriculum than another? Is there something we're missing? It might be you also dig down and use some of the questions as inspiration. You think, okay, let's start to weave in some of these questions. It might be that you focus on one year group and you think, well, let's start with one year group that we think actually we've got the space and time to be able to do this. And then as confidence grows, you can build more and more. So this is a sort of staged process, and it's really important that you, yeah, you sort of think about doing this one step at a time. So just to finish them, I wanted to just reiterate that we've got all of these bridging documents that we've kind of collaborated with boroughs and councils across London to really help bring together to highlight examples of sustainability across London. You've also then got access to all of the wider curriculum materials as well from more than 200 organisations that we've weaved together, and that can act as inspiration. And then into the future, we've also got more and more of this kind of video content. If you go and visit our YouTube channel, you'll be able to find even more examples of inspiration and kind of knowledge checks and little micro bits of CPD that will help you. So thank you so much for joining us. That's been a real quick snapshot. Hopefully it's a nice and easy thing for you to kind of get your to get to understand. If you've got any questions, please do get in touch with us. But otherwise, keep an eye out for all of the other stuff that we're going to be doing over the next few months and next year, helping support teachers across London. So thank you.